Hi, it's Melanie McLean. This is a session for CSRE. So to recap, these are the things we watch. We watch supply and demand. We watch list price sales price ratio. Watch your days on market. Now, when you look at days on market, it's very helpful to do a this quarter this year to this quarter last year comparison, because some markets have seasonal slowdowns. And in some markets, the selling season is different than it is for the rest of the country. So for example, a lot of second home markets are active, not so much the second quarter of the year when year-round residential is very active, but at other times. Internet hits. So however you're marketing your listings, I would assume you've got a company website, you've got Realtor.com, you've got other sites that you put it on, you've got Facebook advertising, you're doing all of this. You really need to be monitoring the hits. So here's the thing, if you've had, and this was a true case for me, and we did finally sell the property, I had an owner who was adamant about a price, which was an aspirational price, and we had over 10,000 hits and no showings. No one called our office to show it from another company. No buyers called us to show it. And I said to the owner, over 10,000 hits and nobody wants to walk in the door. We've got 50 pictures in that advertisement. It's a beautiful property, but it's not perfect, and people are reacting to price. We reduced the price, it did sell. Pay attention to your internet hits. Feedback. Now, feedback is not guaranteed. It is not a right. It's something that you might get, you might not get. But if you get feedback, you are absolutely obligated as a seller agent to share it with your client. So if someone shows my property and says, wow, that cat smell was really bad, I have to share that with my owner, and we have to talk about how maybe we can fix the litter box situation. You also want to look at activity versus other listings. So many times we will have more than one listing in a price range in a company. If house A is getting a ton of showings and house B is not getting very many showings, there's a reason why. So we need to think about that. One of the little tricks of the trade you can use, and this is not an appraisal, this is not evaluation, but units of comparison. So what are they? They're a quick rule of thumb. They're useful information about real estate. They're very easy to track. However, they're not an indication of value. They're not the sole method of pricing, and they're not foolproof. So let's talk price per square foot, because a lot of us like to use this. Now, there are situations where price per square foot is going to work very, very well. If you're selling condominium units in a large city, typically your price per square foot is going to be very reliable. On the other hand, if you're in a rural or semi-rural area where lot sizes vary, price per square foot is not going to work, folks, because you're not factoring in the land. So price per square foot can be used, use it with caution, when you're looking at a homogeneous group of comparables, things that are pretty much the same. So that's how you can use that. Now, the typical units of comparison we use in real estate, price per square foot, we just talked about. Price per square foot for commercial leasing. So commercial real estate is almost always leased on a square foot basis, on an annual square foot basis. Price per square foot or acre for land sales. Price per square foot for new construction. Now, new construction is usually going to be the ceiling in real estate because new is typically better than old. There are a few exceptions. That's another class. Now, I have a picture there of a roller coaster, folks, because most of what influences value is absolutely beyond the control of the owner or the agent. There isn't a person listening to this that didn't wish that they could control the market. that they could make there be less supply and more demand, that they could make interest rates go down, that they could fix unemployment. But we can't fix those things. So again, supply and demand. Sellers always need to understand the number one thing that's going to affect them is what are they up against? What are the other properties on the market and how much demand is out there? I mentioned we're still unsure of what COVID-19 is going to ultimately do to our real estate market. The reason I said that is we know there are people who will lose their jobs. They will lose the job they had permanently. We don't know if they're going to get another job. We don't know if an industry is going to move in. If they get another job, we don't know if it'll pay as much as their last job did. So that's an unknown, and that's unemployment. Now, absorption rate. When you're doing an absorption rate, you have to hone in on the type of property you're pricing. So if I am trying to price that 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-story colonial with a 3-car garage, that's my focus. How many of those have sold? So you go back in time 12 months. I'm going to keep my math simple because I have to do it in my head. Let's just say we had 24 houses like that sell in our market in the last 12 months. That's 2 a month. So now we know we typically sell 2 of these a month. We look at the supply. Let's just say the supply is 3. Well, that's a month and a half worth of inventory. That's a great market for a seller. On the other hand, if the supply was 36, we have a problem. That's a year and a half worth of supply. That's too much. Interest rates, I mentioned. The gurus, for whatever they know, are saying interest rates are going to stay low through 2021, 2022. We will wait and see. Right now, money is incredibly cheap. And I don't understand why more investors are not buying more real estate. Federal monetary policy, this is what the federal government does. And of course, we've had a lot of government activity here in 2020 to stimulate the economy, help people out during a difficult time. Availability of money and the overall economy. These are all things we have to watch. Now, back to that principle of substitution. Your buyer is not going to pay more to acquire one property than what another one, which is very similar, would cost. Typically, consumers employ the principle of substitution on anything that's fairly costly. So pretty much in the United States, you can depend upon people doing this with cars and houses because those are big ticket purchases. People do not necessarily, not all of them, some of them, but people do not necessarily get the flyers from the grocery store and decide which place has the cheapest price on the can of peas that they want to buy. They just go to the supermarket, and if they want a can of peas, they put it in their cart. But when it comes to a vehicle, you know what people do. They figure out what it is they want, what features they want, and they shop dealerships. Same thing with a house. So sellers always need to understand, here's your house, and it is in the context of everything else that's available. The market is competitive. In a homogeneous segment of the market, cheaper houses sell first. And we do have sellers who think, but my house is special, I just repainted it. And you know, things like that, freshening up a house will always make it more attractive and more appeal. But on the other hand, if they just painted their entire house in shades that other people don't like, that person may buy a cheaper house which also needs to be painted, not because they don't like the colors, but because they're old. But in either case, the buyer is saying, I'm going to have to paint regardless, so I'm going to get the cheaper house.